Well, good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Jacqueline King here, CEO and founder of Black Women Empowered. And as always, I tell you that we bring exciting people on doing exciting things. And of course, today we'll definitely not disappoint you with Mr. Dr. Steve Perry. How you doing, Dr. Perry?
Just I'm having the time of my life. How about you?
I am wonderful, and I'm excited that we are together again. I actually recently re-aired our first interview when you was driving the car. Remember that one? You remember that?
I do.
And I re-aired it on our podcast. So, but anyway, excited to have you back. We have a lot to cover. How many schools do you have now?
So one, two, three, four, and we're looking at fifth and well, five, six. Six that we started, five that we started, and six that we're looking at doing.
Wow, that's amazing, and that's good. It's needed all over the world. So let me ask you real quick. Um, I don't think you need an introduction, but if anybody doesn't know you, Dr. Perry is everywhere. He's with Oprah. He's with Steve Harvey. He's with Yana Van Zant. He was on. He had his own show. Was it your own show, Fix My Child?
Uh, yeah. Fix My Child is funny. Is actually was a concept that never came to air. I was on. I had a show called Breakthrough with Dr. Steve Perry, a daytime show.
Okay. Well, I know that you are an advisor to all of TD Jakes. You advise everybody on children. So first of all, how are we doing since the pandemic with the kids? And our kids were already struggling. So how has it affected our kids?
The worst I've seen in my career. I have never seen circumstances as troubling as they are now. Children and adults are more explosive than I've ever seen. Um, Reason seems to have gone out the window. And I mean, just think in the past 7 days, there have been three or four mass shootings. It's what's troubling is that I can't remember how many there have been.
Exactly. Hmm.
So we went from never having them to having them every decade to having them every 48 hours. So they're not isolated incidents. The the normalization of violence on the internet is something that we have yet to see the implications of. So, by way of explanation, um, there've always been violent TV shows. I cut myself as liking to watch old westerns, and so I mean they were killing each other in the westerns, but you knew they weren't really killing each other. You knew they weren't real people. Now we can just lift up our phone, which is among the most intimate things that we can. I mean, it's right there on us at all times. And I don't know how I got tapped into this feed, which I don't like that I'm in, but it's it's kid fights. And just one after another, and they all start off the same. All the kids are holding up their cameras. Just 2, 3 years ago, if a kid in our school filmed another kid in a fight, we would suspend that child.
Yeah, it is bad. But as far as education, did they fall behind? I mean, I know they did, but and what are you doing to bring them up to speed? Because that homeschooling, I know it was a disaster for a lot of parents.
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges that we're faced with post pandemic is the implications on education as a profession. There are too few people who have entered into the profession who are committed to teaching, um, and or being principals or deans or assistant principals. We don't have the bench that we once had. And I say once, not like I'm 100 years old. I remember being able to say to someone who was a teacher, like let's say they came to me mid-year, and I say to them, no, simply because you're coming mid-year. So now they come any time of year because they quit like ain't no thing. That's been normalized. It's been normalized that you can quit a teaching job at any point in the year and get another job somewhere else. Which in my career of almost 30 years, I've never seen that phenomenon. And the implications are real to the culture of the school. When you can't just say, you know what, you're not working out. You're coming in at 9:30 and school starts at 7:30. We're done with you. Can't do that.
And that has to have a major impact on the children to go from, I mean, because they have to adapt too, right? From one teacher to another.
Destructive. Is destructive. I don't think people understand just how bad it is on the front lines. We're not winning, and we're not winning by a lot. There are more challenging circumstances now than I've ever seen. I mean, years ago, about 2, 3 years ago, I saw a woman who was about 7 months pregnant come down and start a fight with a middle school girl.
Wow.
I thought that's got to be the bottom. Like that's the bottom of the bottom. In mid-January, I saw a man. He's about 6'3", about 6'3", 6'4", about 240, 250, beating up a middle school girl. Like I had to stop him from doing that. The fact that I had to stop him from doing it is the story. He didn't stop himself. And the rest of the story is he came with other adults. And these adults were looking for little girls to beat up.
Oh, Lord.
And here's the continuation of the story. And despite us calling the police, nobody got arrested. One of the police officers told me because the kid who this guy punched in the face wasn't injured, he wasn't going to arrest him. We're headed in a direction that I don't think enough people understand. I think if more people understood just how bad it is, maybe they would put down their weapons and they'd say, hey, wait, none of us are going to win. If this continues, none of us are going to win. We need to lock arms and figure this mess out because it's bad. It's bad.
And how, I mean, I don't understand how you and your staff, I mean, teaching used to be you could go in and be a teacher and teach, but you got to deal with so many other issues now. How are you handling that?
So I would argue that there was a time when teachers were more involved in the community than they are now. I would argue that during segregation in particular, you had to live where you taught because you couldn't otherwise get to your job. So if you were a Black teacher, you likely lived in the same neighborhood that you taught in, where you sent your kids to school, and maybe even where you went to school. So there was a sense of oneness, community, unity. Now you don't have to be anywhere near the school or any connection to the community. That's one part. The other part is that I think that people are less capable of dealing with stress. I'm watching men and women just snap. They just tap out. And so how are we doing? I don't think that we're doing well. I don't think that many are equipped emotionally. This is a different generation. I was looking at, how on the Today Show on this weekend, like Sundays, they have a life well lived. And now we're looking at people who are from the greatest generation. And they have people up there who are like Tuskegee Airmen or in Auschwitz or, you know what I mean? Members of the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. These are people, World War II veterans, Korean veterans. These are people who they're 19 years old when they were in some situations, 18 years old. I mean, that's courage. They were not, they were not overwhelmed by life. They didn't have a chance to be. They had to, and the stories about many of them is then they went and they came back from being in a concentration camp or being a Tuskegee Airman, and came back under those conditions and married and had kids, and kids went to college and they retired and they went off and ran for office. I mean, did all these things in their life. Whereas I see people who are stressed because they got to grade papers. I mean, like, what the hell? I mean, what you do with that? I don't know how to talk to somebody who's that soft. Because we've weaponized mental health so much that anytime you have an issue, you can actually put a label on it, and that gives you the freedom to just not go to work, not be there for anyone other than yourself. This notion of self-care has just become selfishness. It's not self-care. Okay, fine. No one's asking you to go out there and hit yourself in the face with a mallet, but is it too much to ask? The police officers down in Texas didn't go in the building.
I know, right?
For an hour. For an hour. An hour. Man, he's got him. Ain't nobody going in. Y'all just going just until he kills everybody in the building. You're just gonna stay out here. Wow.
Yeah, it is bad. So how are you handling it with your staff? Because some of it is real, you have to admit, because the pandemic, it put a lot of fear in a lot of people, and dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. I can't go down the list of the things that could have happened to some people. How are you handling it in your schools?
Our goal is to work with people who want to do the work, and push them to be their best, and provide them the support that's necessary. It's also to separate people from their problems. If this job is your problem, then we want to separate you from it. If we're the problem, then we should definitely not be worrying each other like this. I mean, you should be somewhere else. So somewhere between providing the support that's necessary, but giving people the time that they need and the circumstances they need and the support that they need. And quite frankly, I struggle because I look and I see that the ones who are in the most trouble are our children. So I can't sit and look at a grown person who's making 70, 80, 90, $100,000 a year and feel as bad for them as I do this child or these children who are never going to even be considered for such an opportunity in their lives. There's got to be an order. There has to be an order here. Everybody can't be equally disadvantaged. It's just not right. You can't be a master's level $100,000 employee working 5 days a week and living in the suburbs and claim yourself to be in the same situation as a child who's living in the hood with 6 people in the house, and in that house there's not $100,000 coming in.
Wow.
They may not even need health care.
So the kids, let's talk about the babies again. I mean, how are you? I mean, there's no way to prepare them. I mean, they have to be. I got grandchildren. You have children that are in school. How are we to prepare them for the fact that somebody might come in their school at any time and shoot them?
There's no preparation for that. No one can prepare anybody of any age. I would imagine that we'd have to go back to the 50s and see how that generation was prepared for the the existential threat of Russia. Except there, it seemed like there'd be a warning, and now there won't be. And so I don't know. I don't know how we prepare them.
So are you? I mean, in your school, what are you doing? Are you doing counseling? You got to be doing something. You're talking about.
Yes. So our schools, the way our schools are designed is every single child is in an advisory. That advisory meets every single day, and they talk about any number of issues that they're dealing with in that given day or in their life at that time, and they build those meaningful relationships with each other. We also have more social workers than many schools do. And our overall approach is to understand that by virtue of the fact that we're working with majority poor, majority Black and Latin children, all 100% children, that these are dynamic and difficult times, no matter what times we were in. Excuse me, no generation has ever had it easy. None. And as Black people in particular, there are generations that have had it way harder than we have. Way harder than we have. Way. Like when you can say something is like slavery, it ain't slavery. There's no one who was a slave who was saying it was like something else. It was slavery. And you could say it was like segregation, but like segregation is not segregation. It's not a legal document that limits your ability to ride a bus or to purchase a bicycle or to drink water or to live in a neighborhood. There is no such thing. So there are generations that came before us that that had it way harder than we do, way harder than we do. One of the things that we can do is we can push ourselves and our scholars to be in a better situation where they understand that they cannot get so caught up in themselves that they cannot function, that they have to understand that very often you have to play hurt. One of the most important things that we can do for our children as we support them is to help them to understand that knees will get skinned and then they will heal. But that doesn't stop you from going out and playing kickball just because you might get hurt. You probably will, but you're probably going to survive it. Mm-hmm. So both of those things are true. And the hurt part is temporary.
Well, you've been successful because you wouldn't keep opening up schools if you weren't being successful. I don't think you would, unless you just keep opening up bad schools. So you have relationships. You and I talked about this on our first interview. You have relationships with the parents. Do you still do that? And how do you do that in your schools? Go ahead.
It's a little harder than it's been in the past because of my role now. I'm not on the ground like I once was. So what I would do back then is I'd see them at basketball games and football games, and I would see them at practice. I would see them in the school. I would see them in times when things weren't elevated, and then we could have a conversation like, "Hey, sis, how's it going? Hey, how you doing? You know, hey, I heard you guys had a birthday this week. Yeah, we did." Either that. Some of it's that, you know, a meeting is a bad time. It's not how you're going to form a relationship. That's when things have gone miserably wrong. So for our sake, we as the schools have to constantly work to get out in the community and do things that are necessary to build the relationships that help people to feel supported and to trust you.
And how do you do that?
It'll get you behind out there.
So I'm talking about like events,
everything. You got to go to everything from quinces to funerals. You got to go to baseball games in the community to watch not just your child play, but all the other kids who are out there playing. You got to be part of the fiber of what is going on with children. You have to get out there. They have to see you. What you don't want is for people to be surprised that you're there. That's evidence that you're not there enough. You don't want to go to a basketball game. Somebody say, "Hey, Dr. Perry, why are you here?" Why? All right. Because I'm supposed to be. Apparently, I'm supposed to be more than I've been. You want people to be happy to see you. You don't want people to be surprised to see you. You want people to feel like I see him all the time. Like he's my principal. He's of course he's here at 11 o'clock at night when something goes miserably wrong. Like who else would I call if not him? So we have to just get out into the community and build bonds. Provide information. Go to church on a Sunday or go to mosque on Fridays. Just go where you're invited. When you start going places, you'll start getting invited to more places. And it's cool to go. I mean, people gonna take really good care of you. Nobody's gonna invite you somewhere and make a fool out of you. But that's hard to get. It's hard to get people who are currently in our profession to do those things because they say, I need to have work-life balance. I need it. All right. Well, I'm not really sure what all that means, but I guess. So yeah, you got to get out there.
So with your schedule, you're doing a lot. You're doing your broadcast, and first of all, let me thank you for airing on our platform because we're excited that you're part of our family as well. So you're doing your broadcast. Now you go to the school in Harlem. You just have one school in Harlem, or
Yeah. So we have a school in Harlem. We have a school in the Bronx. We have two in Bridgeport. We have one in Hartford, and then we're looking to open another one soon.
and you have to go around to all these schools.
Yes,
Oh wow. Um, does P-Diddy come in the schools as well?
he does. But that the how can I say, the way that he and I have a relationship is it's not his responsibility to run the schools. He does his part, and I do
Mhm.
mine, and that works best for both of us.
Right. I was just saying because as a presence, because everybody likes rapping and all of that stuff. Does he make present? Make an appearance every now and
Every
then?
now and then, yes.
Okay. Um, so I want to talk about. No, I know we don't have much time because you've got things to do. I know you recently had a scare, and you were very transparent with that. It was so. I mean, it was very emotional for me because I mean, I've listened to you for years, and I just saw a side of you that I never saw. Uh, how scary was that?
It wasn't for me. It was scary for everybody else, but not for me. I just eh, I was in a meeting, much no different than the one like you and I, the conversation you and I are having. And as I was in the conversation, I was getting a really bad headache. Um, and as the headache worsened, it felt strange. I felt like on the left side of my body, like I had Novocaine or something, and just it was weird. My hand was tingling. I thought this is weird, and my head was hurting. But I was trying to say something to a person who I was in a meeting with. I couldn't say it. I was trying to say I had anticipated a lawsuit, is what I was trying to say, um, with an attorney. And I couldn't say it. I just couldn't get it to come out. What it sounded like in my head and what it sounded like in my mouth were not one and the same. So he asked me if I was all right, and I was trying to tell him yes, I'm fine, but it was like I was in a nightmare. You know how you're in a nightmare? They say you're screaming and no one hears you. That's what it felt like. It felt like my body was betraying me. And so I'm home now, but um, right outside of my house, we have a garage, and one of the bays I've converted into an office, and we have a detached garage, is what I'm trying to say. So I was over there, and my wife and kids were over here where I am now. And the brother who I was meeting with called one of my colleagues, who then called another one of my colleagues who was in the neighborhood, who lives not very far from us, came over. She didn't know my wife was home. She came knocking on the door, and I came in. And next thing you know, I'm headed to the hospital shortly thereafter, headed for emergency brain surgery. Said I had a stroke. I mean, it from where I sat, I didn't. I never was worried. It's not a point of arrogance. It's just faith. I just wasn't concerned, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't want to, again, I don't want to come off as if I'm saying that it wasn't serious. It was serious. It was very serious. But um, if to ask me how I was feeling, I was um, I was more bummed out because I had a meeting that I was trying to get to. I was more bummed out that my wife and kids and family and friends were concerned. I didn't want that. I didn't want anybody to be scared for me. And that's what I kept telling them when I was talking to them. I was saying, your energy affects me. So if I hear that you're worried, then that messes with me. So I need you to not be worried. And then I'll do what I got to do. And then we'll get out of here. So when the doctor came and said, we're going to perform emergency brain surgery, it was a Monday. I said, so what are you thinking? Like Wednesday, Thursday? He said, no, right now. Okay. And there was no time to think. Just took me upstairs and took me to the elevator, literally jogged me through the hospital, put me on the elevator. Next thing I know, I was on a gurney already. So it was game time then. And sitting through brain surgery is not fun. Well, it wasn't for me. Because I had to be awake because of the kind of surgery that it was. So the pain of it was not something that I would want to do again. I feel like the worst headache I'd ever had. Like I just felt like it was just like the worst headache. And when it was over, it was over. And thank God to my knowledge, haven't had any residual effects. My back bothers me more than my head does right now. I didn't work out for 3 days this week because my back is bothering, but that's a problem that I'll take.
You look amazing. I mean, I know you already had faith. I've followed you for so long, and I know that you don't talk about it, and that's you. But has your faith increased? I know you already was a faith person anyway, but has it increased?
Yeah. So yes, let me say it this way. It's confirmed. It was never low. One of my friends who's a doctor, I told him that my wife had said that I had a 10% chance of making it, and he laughed. He said, "No, you didn't. Your chances were not that high."
Wow.
He said, "I've never seen anyone make it out." And he's been a doctor for 30 years.
Wow.
I've never seen that before. He said, so you didn't have a 10% chance. I don't know what you were reading on the internet, but that was wrong. And he asked me, he said, he said, have you reconsidered what you're doing with your life? I said, not at all. Not at all. I mean, no, not at all. Not even a little bit. In fact, that fight that I told you I broke up between the man and the little girl, that was when I got back from work the next week. So I got back to work I got out of ICU on a Friday. I was back to work on Monday, and then that was at the end of that week. So I still had stitches when I'm grabbing this dude, telling him like, "What the hell are you doing?" So I've always felt like God could have picked anybody to do what I do. He could have picked anyone in the world, like anyone in the world. He picked me. Like he didn't have to do that. And he could change his mind any given day. At the blink of an eye. I'm but a blade of grass in a field or a grain of sand on a beach. I know where I am. I'm not, I've not made myself into anything greater than what I am. I know what I am. So because of that, my faith was already pretty solid before. It is something, to your point, it is something I am private about. Not because it's a secret, because I feel like too often people weaponize their faith. You ever notice when somebody gets jammed up, like how they become the holiest person? And, you up there looking at this cat who's up for murder, and he's like, God, so God's on your side now. You all right. I'm not sure what book you got, but that doesn't sound like one of the things that he's or if you put out this vile music and say vile things and you live a vile life and then you win an award for doing all those things and you thank God, I'm gonna go with him. Yeah, I don't think you need to thank him for that. I think you need to thank him for not shutting your black ass down, but I don't think that you necessarily need to thank him for that. I don't really think that what you have, he's fond of. So I I never put it out there because I don't also want to. I think too many people put too much of their life up for public consumption, and the more you do that, the more public will consume it, and they'll give you their opinion, which is only their opinion. It's not even their reality, right? You put your relationship up. I would never put up with that. You actually put up with worse. So stop it. You're like, I would never wear those ugly shoes. Yeah, because they cost way too much for you to buy. Like you're not. It's not even an opinion. Like you're not even really. So faith is one of those things that, especially in a position like mine, where that I do have some visibility and there could appear to be inconsistencies in my faith and my walk because I suspended somebody's child. You're supposed to be a black man. Why are you going to suspend a black child? Because he threw something and hit somebody in the head and it split the head open. That's why. Yeah, but that's the school to prison pipeline. You're supposed to be a man of God. No, it's like, like all these things that all these things that they put on me so that I can do their bidding. So my faith was already strong. I'll say this. First time I met Bishop Jakes, I told him, brother, I would never want to be you. Never, 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 never. I don't. Give me all the stuff you have, and I say, does it come with that? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm so good. I'm so good. It's the reason why a lot of these people out here call themselves motivational speakers. They're motivational speakers because what they really want to be is preachers, but the preacher lifestyle is too restrictive.
You telling the truth. My grandfather was a pastor for 70 years. I know what you're saying.
So that lifestyle is too restrictive. It's got too many rules, too many things that they do just as part of their life that they couldn't do. And so since they couldn't do them, they can't be a preacher, but they like the feeling of being out front. They like the feeling, and they can't sing that well, so they can't go out as a singing performer.
I can't with you, Steve.
So the best thing they could do is tell a tale and entertain in that way, and people pay them for it. And they say they're motivational speakers, and one would think if you're a motivational speaker, then you should be living your best life. And for them, in many cases, it means that they make a lot of money, which takes us all the way back to those rappers. Just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean you're necessarily doing God's work. I mean, can't really think that that's what he's looking at, right? You can't really think that if you're a poor pastor or a poor social worker, that somehow you are less meaningful in his eyes. You can't think, really? Wow, I need to see that scripture. So for me, I've always been comfortable in my faith. I've always been comfortable in what I don't know. I'll recognize that I'm a Christian under construction. So I got the first floor done. That's about it. I'm the other levels I'm not going to claim, but I know, and I knew, and I'll say this: when I was lying there on the table, I was covered. I was awake, but I looked up, and there was just the purest, most even white light. It was just absolutely uninterrupted. There were no breaks in it. It was the absolute purest, clearest color. And at no point was I thinking I could die from this clot that's in my brain that's causing the left side of my body to shut down and me to lose my speech. At no point did that cross my mind. What really was happening was I was telling myself jokes while I was sitting there. I was just like making fun of the situation. At one point I said, tomorrow I'm gonna tell everybody I had brain surgery. That's what I kept saying. That's what I'm gonna say tomorrow. People ain't gonna believe me. They gonna be like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yes, I did. And I'm gonna show you the scar. It was not a bigger test of my faith is the parent who comes down and says they want to fight me after I just paid for their child to go to college.
Wow.
Literally, after I just got my phone call made it possible for you to get $300,000, and you MFing me up one side down the other. You want that brain surgery didn't do that, but that just like what am I doing? What not even thank you? Or the person whose rent I paid. I don't do these things often, but like when they were in college and they ain't got nothing nice to say about me now. Wow. First job you got, those things, those things that doesn't necessarily uh, make me question my faith, but it tests my faith. That more than life or death. I mean, it's just the living things. That decision is going to be made for me, and when it's made, I'm not going to be consulted. But these other decisions that are done to me by other people, those things test my faith much more than the former.
You are indeed a blessing to a lot of people, and I want to thank you. Tell them about your show and how they can watch you and all of that stuff. Give my people your information.
Well, I'll tell you really briefly. So we started this this little thing called No Dumb Questions on it started on StreamYard and then it went on to Instagram and it's been taken off. I don't it's the funniest thing. Like it's the funniest thing that people care about it. And it's on Thursdays at 6 p.m. It's live. I get to talk to really interesting people.
But you're going to Fridays, right?
I don't. If I am, you're telling me that. I don't.
Never mind.
Okay. I'm not going to say I'm not. I'm just saying that from what I've been told, it's still Thursdays, and it is a raucous conversation. I get to talk to some really cool people, some really cool people, and they get to be themselves, which is super dope too. People who you know or you think you've seen in the media, or you've seen their work, and you get to meet them as people. And some of them I'm friends with. A lot of them I've never met before, and so I'm asking them questions that I want to know. I don't really care what you want to know. I'm just trying to figure out things about it myself. Why would you do reality TV if you're a doctor? Like, why would you do that? Like, why do you want that kind of smoke? Why would you put your marriage on TV? Why? I mean, seriously, why? It just feels like, unless you don't want it, in which case, go ahead and do it. Because everybody's marriage I've seen on television gets toe up from the flow up.
You better know it. So, and Dr. Perry's had some really great guests. My favorite, of course, was Yolanda Adams. But I know that you've had Faith Evans and Judge Ricky, is it Lauren Lake?
Lauren Lake, yeah.
And I can't remember all of them, but it airs on our platform too. So that's a good thing. You can always go to Black Women Empowered Incorporated, and you can go to Steve's page, whichever one, or Instagram or whatever. So give them your whatever information you want to share, your Twitter, your Instagram.
I'm super. They can always check me at Dr. Steve Perry on all platforms. That's so. Sis, I appreciate you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll be talking again soon, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, and thank everybody. Until the next time, actually, I have an interview coming up shortly, but God bless. Take care.
Take care.